Immediately following the release of the first iPad, access to online pornography shot up by 9%.
This is Exploring Unusual Sex, the podcast about odd stuff that helps understanding everyday matters. Our host today, from Milan, Italy, is author, journalist and personal coach Ayzad.
Welcome! In this episode we talk about rolling scams, lap dance marketing, porn to die for, erotic evolution and much more. Let's get starting, and the first topic is supernatural sex. Many persons feel that sex is a magical experience, but throughout the centuries, lots of people wanted to attach literally supernatural powers to it. Up to the 19th century, inadequate scientific knowledge almost justified a magical vision of sexuality. It is not a coincidence if, besides all the primitive rituals and superstitions, the age of sex magic really began side by side with the Spiritism fad around 1860. In both cases, it was a reaction against the progresses of science and the Industrial Revolution that transformed the world so quickly as to make it scary and beyond comprehension. No more nor less than what is happening today with the changes caused by the Internet. We take solace in the oversimplifications of populism and paranoid conspiracy theories. Our great-great-great-great-grandfathers turned to the world of spirits and magic instead. It's a pity, then, that, as widely proved since their very first days, mediums and spiritists were merely swindlers who took advantage of psychologically very fragile individuals to get rich. Alleged sex warlocks like Aleister Crowley and his countless imitators did even worse. In addition to taking money from fools, they also took advantage of them sexually. In the case you are now intrigued by this sort of silliness, I can save you the effort of studying the subject. While there are many variations on the theme, the founding idea is just that focusing the energy produced when having an orgasm, you can give shape to your desires. It is exactly the same principle behind wishing very hard for something as you blow on the candles of your birthday cake. The sum of the emotion for an intense moment and the hyper-awareness toward positive signals confirming your convictions over the following days drives you to believe that a mysterious force is lending a hand. The truth is, it is just self-delusion, just like with every other form of irrational thought. The interpretations of the concept of sex magic itself are most varied, and they strangely seem to always match the personal interest of those pushing them. Activist and performer Annie Sprinkle, for example, merely observed that anyone living sex positively within a Puritan culture is treated like witches of old. For the gay porn star and part-time occultist Conor Habib, a basic magic ritual simply consists in watching online pornography because the combination of focusing on symbolic imagery and arousal pushes the mind into advanced perceptual dimensions. His words. The rituals of the infamous esoteric society Ordo Templi Orientis include sexual ceremonies reserved to its highest adepts, that is, those who dearly paid for initiatory courses and certifications. This aspect emerged especially when the aforementioned Crowley was managing it, with the future founder of Scientology among its members. Talking about orgiastic rites, though, it is inevitable to also think of the black masses of satanic cults, deserving a separate digression.
Let me interrupt you just a sec for an important reminder. The episode notes contain all the links to the topics mentioned in the podcast, and if you want to dig deeper, you will find hundreds of further articles on the Ayzad.com website.
I don't know the international figures, but here in Italy, CESNUR, which is a research group on new religions, found the perception of Satanism to be highly overrated compared to its real size and danger. In particular, Italy has just 200 true Satanists, meaning people campaigning for the independence from organized religions, similar to eccentric philosophers, and about 1,500 fly-by-night Satanists. This definition indicates seriously distressed people, often minors and almost always big drug users, acting randomly and taking inspiration from a vague occult symbology. This is confirmed by a most authoritative source. Mario Maccione was the leader of a murderous group called Satan's Beasts, and he wrote, "There is very little of satanic orgies, sometimes preceded by a so-called black mass, that is, a bunch of symbols and nothing more. Masses are true farces, a bait to seek out easy girls. This modus operandi is the same all over the world, in cases like the Brazilian Renato Reis Fragada, who claimed to be a satanic rock star in order to abuse 68 minors, or in Turin in 2017, where self-professed satanic healing mages raped their customers and took videos to blackmail them with, even when they were just underage girls. It must be told, however, that for every magic criminal, there are legions of self-deluded people in good faith. The thing is, esoteric beliefs enter the sexual sphere during hardships, in the unconscious attempt to walk away from the responsibility of one's own problems. This is the very reason why the matter is made even more complicated by the difficulty of separating reality from imaginary perceptions that are often helped by alcohol and drug abuse and by the validation provided by other people sharing similar beliefs, not to mention by the media, which is the case, for example, for sexual vampirism. Everything begins with a literary portrayal of vampires, described as erotically irresistible. Some, especially among teenagers, then try to emulate their style to compensate their self-perceived insufficient sex appeal. Again referring to Italy, the largest national association here claims that just 50 of their 2,000 members actually affect drinking small quantities of blood from each other to benefit of its unclear healing powers. But what about the others? Well, they smash face first into reality. Thus, they are forced to redefine vampirism as the alleged absorption of prana, or psychic energy, from nearby people, usually during specific sexual encounters. The pseudo-victims, called donors, play along with the travesty with similar conviction. All in all, the one thing more magical than sex is the power of self-delusion.
The Sexual Explorers Manifesto is a global initiative to spread a healthier and more positive approach to sexuality. You can easily find it with an online search, but in the meantime, let's take a closer look at one of its 15 items. Today's one says:
Sex is also a tool for personal growth. Besides the pleasure it provides, sex always represents an opportunity to better know ourselves, our partners, our psychology, and more. The freedom of exploration within conscious sexual context allows to safely experiment with alternative identities and situations. Nurturing curiosity and an analytical approach towards other interpretations of sexuality exposes us to countless concepts, subcultures, and notions you don't necessarily have to embrace, but which enrich and expand the mind anyway. All of this makes sex, when done intelligently, an enabler for individual evolution, but also offers many occasions for intellectual and even spiritual pleasure.
This is your moment! In every episode, we pick one question among those sent to our expert at podcast@ayzad.com. So let's get writing to get an answer like this.
If this episode of Exploring Unusual Sex didn't feel dark enough for you, leave it to Amira, who wrote in this. I am writing a fanfiction whose characters find themselves immersed in the world of extreme porn. Since I would like to keep the story realistic, can you please explain what is the real deal about snuff? It might be wise to specify that snuff here refers to videos where someone gets killed in front of a camera, possibly after enduring tortures of a very different kind than the safe, sane and consensual ones enjoyed by BDSM players. The subject has always been a mainstay for those leading crusades against pornography, but it is essential to know that, even after many international investigations, no trace was ever found of a market for that sort of material. Probably also because you'd have to be a real idiot to advertise the proofs of your complicity in crime. That type of snuff porn, therefore, only exists in the plot of movies and novels. The closest thing to it are the pictures taken by some psychopathic killers of their feeds, but of course they are not circulated anyway. Unfortunately, however, someone getting their kicks with similar material do exist. they are undoubtedly mentally ill persons collecting clips that contain special effects, such as the Old Guy Near Pig movie series, or in the public domain, possibly recorded from unethical news programs showing accidents, suicides, or the bloody threats from terrorists of all sorts. On the other hand, available to everyone are drawings and graphical elaborations eroticizing violent death. The most famous one are by Dolcet, specializing in pin-ups with the ambition of getting hanged, impaled, or cooked alive. The existence of entire virtual communities revolving around them doesn't really help. Their users, of every gender, inevitably end up normalizing, at least in part, the idea that killing people could be a fun erotic game. The good news, however, is that in spite of all of this, only 2 homicide cases have been recorded that can be directly traced to this subculture, counting hundreds of thousands of followers all over the world. After solving this doubt too, I want to remind everyone that sex should always be a pleasure, not a problem, even when it is uncommon. However, if you are experiencing issues, I can help you as a personal coach to discover together the ideal strategy to win back your happiness in this field. You can get in touch through my website ayzad.com, spelled Ayzad, and saying you are a listener of this podcast will earn you a 20% discount on the first session.
This episode is almost over, but we still have time to read one entry from XXX, the Dictionary of Unusual Sex, available in online bookstores everywhere, but in Italian only for the moment.
Today's entry is jelq, an ancient Sudanese technique for penis enlargement, roughly consisting in squeezing it like a toothpaste tube to push blood toward the glands. In theory, the pressure increase would form micro-lesions that, scarring over, cause a growth in size over time. The word lesions and scars already should make you guess that doing jelqs is not a good idea, but there's more. Searching for information about these exercises, you will find that the ancient tradition was invented out of the blue by someone who's plastering the web with sites selling, at a steep price, jelq equipment. That is, a sort of double roll to perfectly squash your dick with. Even better, in its basic version, $63 please, the Jelkaiser is nothing but a kitchen gizmo designed to assist the little old ladies in opening marmalade jars, specially repackaged for dummies. And that really was it. Before leaving you with one last unusual sex fact, I want to thank you for listening and invite you to follow me on my social networks and above all on my website, ayzad.com, which is also the ideal place to sign up for my newsletter. That way you'll get straight in your inbox new articles, reviews, invitations to events, and the notification for new podcast episodes which you can listen to and comment pretty much everywhere, like iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Spreaker, and so on. If you liked exploring unusual sex, I would also like to invite you to fill the Tell Me About You form you can find linked in the episode notes, so you will help me make the next episodes even better and closer to your tastes. Finally, you can also lend a hand by telling your friends about this podcast and writing about it on your social networks. Thanks, and before moving on to the next episode, here's the fact I promised you. A lap dancer in the fertile phase of her cycle earns an average of 28% more tips, thus confirming male sensitivity to her estrus.